DreAllDay.com.
Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com. It's April 11th, Thursday, 2019. The day you're watching this video is April the 13th, Saturday, 2019. A lot of people have been asking. I've been getting tweets, DMs, comments. People stop me in the street. Nobody stopped me in the street, but you know what I'm saying. People ask Dre, are you going to do the NBA playoff preview videos? You already saw the title of this video. It's probably the reason you clicked on this video. Answer is yes. Here we are. 2019 NBA playoffs. This is my favorite time of year for basketball. I don't really watch college, March Madness. I'm not into that. Pro basketball is what I like. NBA basketball is what I like to watch. I don't even watch games during the season. Honestly, I don't. I watch the Christmas Day games, and that's it. I follow the box score. Every day I look at the box scores and see who's doing what. I watch the little highlight clips to see how the games went. I pay attention to the content that's being put out. I read the articles and the stories by the writers, the beat writers who follow, and the columnists who talk about it, and listen to some podcasts about ball. But I don't watch the games until playoff times. Playoffs is go hard or go home. My favorite time of year for basketball. This is when it matters. Nobody can act like the game don't matter at this time of year. That's what I like about the playoffs, is nobody can front like it's not important. So that's why we're here. That's why I'm making this video, because these are the important games that, I mean, every game is important, but these are the games that nobody can act like they're not important. So we're gonna go both conferences. This will be the Eastern Conference. I'm gonna do a separate video for the Western Conference. We're gonna go through all 4 matchups of the 8 teams that are in the playoffs. But before we get into the 8 teams that actually made the playoffs, let's talk about the trash teams that did not make the playoffs, and my impression of what they're doing right now, what happened this season, and maybe a couple of their players and where they're headed for the future. So we're gonna start with the Eastern Conference. If I gotta choose a conference, I gotta choose the East. I live out there, so don't go there. Shout out Notorious B.I.G. R.I.P. to Nipsey Hussle, by the way. I haven't said that on video. But anyway, let's start at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, the New York Knickerbockers. Well, I think the Knicks did a good thing in getting rid of, they got rid of some salary that they shouldn't have had on their books in the first place. Courtney Lee, Tim Hardaway Jr., those guys had a lot of money left on their contracts. The Knicks need to clear their books. The Knicks should be doing what the Sixers did, like the process. But for whatever reason, they're not doing that. They signing these players who they don't need to sign the big contracts. They traded Porzingis, which I guess they got the impression from Porzingis that he didn't want to stay in New York and they didn't want to try to win him over anymore. If I'm a Knicks executive, I'm like, yo, we can't trade away this dude and hope to get lucky again in the draft. So anyway, they did it. I wish they would not have done that. If I'm a Knicks fan, I'm wishing that didn't happen, but they did it, it's done. So right now, I'm just crossing my fingers and toes and hoping that we get that lottery ball and we get Zion Williamson for that #1 pick. And hoping that maybe Kyrie and or Kevin Durant. Yeah, I think those are the 2 guys that I want on the team in New York. I know there's other free agents, but those are 2 guys that I want. Those are the 2 blue chippers that are surely free agents this summer. So that's what I'm hoping for the Knicks. But we're not going to spend too much time talking about these trash teams. Cleveland Cavaliers, I don't know if they're ever going to be good. I don't know if they're going to be good for any point during Kevin Love still being a star level player. I think he'll return to all-star form next year. He missed a lot of games this year. He was on my fantasy team, was really fucked up my fantasy team, Kevin Love being injured. But the rest of that team, what do they have? I mean, what do the Cavs have to look forward to? I'm not sure they have anything. I mean, they got Colin Sexton, who appears to have gotten better over the course of the season. I know point guard is a hard position to learn in the NBA. Kevin Love will be back full strength. They're going to get a lottery pick. I think they'd be good if they got, I don't know, R.J. Barrett on the Cavs. Can he play off the ball? I'm not sure he's an off the ball guy. He reminds me, he looks a little bit like he would mold into a James Harden-ish guy who you run the offense around him. But if you already got Sexton, then that might not work. So I don't know who they plan on getting in the draft, but if they get the #2 pick, I think they might take Barrett or the kid Morant, but he's also a point guard. So maybe they don't want the top 2 pick. Maybe they can trade down and get another player. But Chicago Bulls. This is a team that I'm not sure the Bulls organization is in good shape. So I hope that they don't get the #1 pick and get Zion Williamson. If the Cavs got him, I wouldn't be mad, but the Cavs have won so many lotteries over the last several years, I don't think they deserve it. The Chicago Bulls definitely don't deserve it, but they very well could win it. And the thing is, though, they got all these bigs. They got Markkanen, they got Wendell Carter Jr., and now if they get the #1 pick, they're going to have Zion. That means they're probably going to trade one of these bigs, right? I mean, Markkanen is only his 2nd year. Wendell Carter's, this was just his 1st year. So I don't know. What do they do if they get the #1 pick? I hope they don't get it because I don't want Zion to be playing for the Bulls. I'd love to see him playing for the Knicks. There's another team I'd love to see him playing for. We'll get to in a moment. But what else Chicago has going on? I mean, they gave Zach LaVine a big contract. Well, the Kings gave him the contract. The Bulls matched the contract. Zach LaVine, he has talent. He's a great scorer. He can put the ball in the basket. When he attacks the rim, he's pretty damn hard to stop. He proved that this year. He did it consistently. The challenge is, if you're paying a player that much money, can you make the playoffs if he's your best player? And I think the answer is unequivocally no. You cannot make the playoffs if Zach LaVine is your best player. They went 22-60. I know he missed some games, but even when he played, they weren't that good. So I don't know why Chicago even matched that contract. They should have let him go to Sacramento, but they didn't. So I don't know what the Bulls' plan is. Now they could do good with a RJ Barrett. He'd be good on the Chicago Bulls, yeah, because he can run the offense and they could. I don't know what they would do, but anyway, they got a lot of talent. Let's see if they can figure out what to do with it. Next, the Atlanta Hawks. Now this is a team on the come up. The Atlanta Hawks. Any of y'all who are Atlanta Hawks fans, and I'm not talking about bandwagon fans who decide to become fans because they got Trae Young and we see that the kid Collins is nice. This team is a team on the rise. Now, if the Atlanta Hawks get Zion Williamson, I see them making the playoffs next year. They won 29 games this year, which is not bad. When Trae gets better, this was his rookie year. John Collins is going to be in his 3rd year. If they continue to put the right pieces around what they have there, and they got Lloyd Pierce as the coach, seems like they got a solid organization. They're getting an extra draft pick from the Dallas Mavericks from the Luka trade for Trae Young. If they add Zion, they're making the playoffs next year. They can win 40 games, 41 games. 41 games got to the playoffs in the East. They can win that next year. They get, oh my God, that would be a hell of a team. I might have to start watching those games. Between Collins and Zion catching those passes from Trae Young, you kidding me? Anyway, but they're on the come up. I see them getting a lot better next year no matter who they get in the draft, as long as they're healthy. Washington Wizards. This is a tough team. Brad Beal showed that he's a star. Had a great year even after the John Wall injury. They gave John Wall a whole lot of money. Then John Wall got injured. And then he got injured again. He tore his Achilles. He'll probably miss all of next year. If he plays, it's not going to be to the end of the year. He's not going to be 100%. So it's going to be a whole other season before John Wall finally plays again. But they still got to pay him all that money, and it's still taking up space on their salary cap. So Wizards fans, I'm sorry. At least y'all got rid of Ernie Grunfeld finally. I mean, he's been a not good GM for a very long time, but he kept his job inexplicably. So I don't know what Washington's going to do moving forward. Y'all not in a good space. Washington Wizards. Dwight Howard, y'all gave him a player option for another year, I believe. Why? Why'd you give Dwight Howard a player option? I'm sorry, Wizards fans. Anyway, moving on. Miami Heat. It's the city that I live in. D-Wade finally retired. Congratulations on a great career, D-Wade. I think Udonis has him maybe on his way out as well with him, but Udonis barely played this year. Miami Heat were a disappointment. With the kind of players they have, you got a guy like Wade in his final season who was actually pretty good. He was better than I thought he would be in his final year. He was actually pretty good this year. You got Justice Winslow, who is, supposedly supposed to be good. I'm not sure if he is. If he can be consistently good, what position is he actually going to play? Because if he's going to be the point guard, they were doing this whole point justice thing. That means Goran Dragic needs to go. And they're paying Dragic a lot of money. He's been an all-star. Josh Richardson is supposedly the Heat's best player, or has been at some points, people have said. And I had him on my fantasy team, and then I look at the box score, and he's got like 8 points and 3 rebounds and 2 assists. And I'm like, what is it that they have? They got a lot of players like that who are supposedly good, but then they have these games where they don't do anything. Hassan Whiteside, they gave this guy $100 million. And Whiteside is, I think mentally, Whiteside believes that he's no Joel Embiid, but I think Joel Embiid has proved that he's Joel Embiid. And Whiteside is who Whiteside is. I don't think he's going to be around for Miami much longer. Once that contract is up, I believe he'll be gone from Miami. I think he wants to leave, and I think Miami wants him to leave, but I don't think he has a high trade value right now because of the way the game is changing around him. So Miami Heat overall was just a disappointment this year. They should have been better given the players that they have, the amount of talent that these players supposedly have, the amount of money that they paid to this payroll. They should have been better. So I don't know what the Heat are doing. Are they going to bottom out and try to get some good higher draft picks? Are they going to try to do it through free agency? They need to do one or the other. They stood pat over the past year to this year. That didn't work. They lost. What they do last year, they got beat on in the first round by my hometown Philadelphia 76ers, and they brought back basically the same damn team. They traded Tyler Johnson, another guy who they overpaid, he's the reason that Wade ended up walking, because they paid Tyler Johnson a bunch of money instead of paying Dwayne Wade, which ended up being a bad idea, which we see in the long run. And yeah, the Heat need to figure out what they're doing. Right now they're in no man's land, and you don't want to be in no man's land in the NBA. You're either a solid playoff team that's continuing to do something, or you're a bum-ass team that's going to be trash and try to get a high draft pick. But the Heat are in the middle. What are you doing? So please, Miami, figure that out. Or try to sign LeBron again. Number 9 team in the East. The last team that missed out on the playoffs was the Charlotte Hornets. And Charlotte actually was better than I thought they would be this year. I'm not afraid of this team. If I'm a fan of any of the top teams in the Eastern Conference and we're playing against the Hornets, I'm like, all right, we're going to win that series. It was a playoff series. Now, any given night, anybody can win in the league. Kemba Walker, great player, very shifty off the bounce. Nobody can stay in front of this dude off the dribble. The problem for Kemba Walker is there's nobody else on the team who's even close to his level of good. Therefore, nobody even notices or talks about this guy. Luckily, he made the All-Star game this year. Congrats to Kemba on that. I think he'll probably re-sign in Charlotte because they're going to pay him a lot of money. And, I mean, why not? I don't know, where would he go? He doesn't seem like, I haven't heard him talk a lot, but he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who's like thirsty for the spotlight and the attention like some players in the NBA. And maybe he's just happy being that guy. And he's the all-time leading scorer in their team history and all of that stuff. So, and Michael Jordan's there. So I'm not sure he's going to walk. I'm not sure he's going to walk away from Charlotte this year as a free agent. I think they're going to offer him a ton of money. And I think my prediction is he's going to take it and he's going to stay. It'd be great if they can get another great player to come play with him. I don't know who that would be. Who would want to go to Charlotte? I mean, Michael Jordan, maybe worth something. And it'd be great if Kemba walked. And Kemba Walker walked and went and go play somewhere actually good. Imagine how good he'd be on like the Spurs or something like that. A team with a solid organization, solid roster, where he could actually play with some other really good players and get into some meaningful games. But anyway, he's not there, so Kemba, good luck to you. Next, let's get into the actual teams that made the playoffs. The first number 1 versus number 8 series is the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Detroit Pistons. Now, the Bucks won 60 games this year. You already know that Giannis is my pick for MVP. I'm reading articles and listening to podcasts from people who actually have votes for those awards. It looks like Giannis is going to win MVP, and nobody can be mad at that. Him and Harden dominated this year, but nobody can be mad at Giannis winning. The Bucks, a 60-win team. Detroit, Blake Griffin is kind of banged up right now, which is a problem, a big problem for Detroit. He's the best player on the damn team. And you could argue that he was the second best player, had the second best season of anybody in the East this year after Giannis because of his availability. Joel Embiid was, of course, great. Kawhi was great. Both of them missed a lot of games. Blake Griffin is really good. Nobody really talked about him this year because he's in Detroit. And nobody really talked about Detroit with good reason because they're a 500 team who's probably going to get beat on pretty badly in this first round series. I see them losing this series in 5 games. The Bucks going to win in 5. We already know the Bucks story. They built the team around Giannis. Giannis is the fucking man. What else we got to say about this? Without a healthy 100% Blake Griffin, Pistons have no chance whatsoever in this series. Andre Drummond is going to put up some great stats, but Andre Drummond is not winning a playoff series for you. I think we already know that. He's been in the league long enough. He's been putting up great stats for a long time. And Detroit, they never did nothing in the playoffs. Barely even, have they been anything but a 7th or 8th seed even in the playoffs? So without 100% Blake, forget about it. This series will be short. Second series, Toronto, number 2 seed against the Orlando Magic. Now, Orlando Magic is a team that's not to be overlooked. Not to say that they're going to win this series, but they are a well-coached team with Steve Clifford. And I tweeted this the day before I'm recording this. And Steve Clifford had a chance in the revenge game, quote unquote, to keep Charlotte from making the playoffs by beating them in the last game of the season. I predicted they would, and they did. Steve Clifford's a good coach. Vooch is a very good center, Vucevic. I was hoping that they didn't play the Sixers because the Sixers are my hometown team. Vooch always gives Joel Embiid some problems, so let him be Toronto's problem instead of the Sixers' problem. The Magic are a good defensive team. People don't try to do more than what they can actually do. Their players are not, on paper, they're not imposing, but nobody tries to do more than what they're supposed to do, which is what makes them formidable. Everybody knows their role and plays their position. Aaron Gordon, I thought, would be a lot better. I think he needs to be on a different team where he can actually be the stretch 4. On this team, they got too many big guys, and he's not really in his right space, and he needs to play better on top of that. I would see in this series, I say Orlando can win. They're going to win at least 1 game. I think they can win 2. But it really depends on which Toronto Raptors team shows up. If Gasol is in there healthy, if Kawhi is engaged and fully locked in, and I guess he's going to play in every game in the playoffs since there are no back-to-backs and it's the playoff. He's playing in every game and he's engaged, and Kyle Lowry is in every game and engaged and healthy. This is a 5-game series. The Raptors are very good. They won 58 games this year and didn't even do it with a ton of fanfare. Pascal Siakam is looking like a future All-Star. I see this as a 5-game series because Toronto is just that good. Orlando's a very good team, despite their record. They don't have a lot of talent, but they're very good with what they have. That's a 5-game series. And engaged Kawhi is the difference between that going 5 or going 6. But Toronto should be disappointed if that series goes 6 games. That should be a 5-game. Third series, the 3 versus 6 series. My hometown Philadelphia 76ers. If I'm cheering for a team in the playoffs, it's the Sixers. So if you follow me on Twitter or IG, the team I'm cheering for is the Sixers. They're the hometown team. We survived the process, and now we actually are looking like we're trying to contend to actually win a championship. So the Sixers are against the Brooklyn Nets. This would be a fun series. If I was in Philly, I would go to one of these games. Sixers against Brooklyn. Brooklyn back in the playoffs. The problem that Brooklyn's going to have in this series is that Jared Allen, their center, is too light in the ass, as old heads used to say back in the day. He's too light in the ass to guard a guy like Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is going to put Jared Allen in the hoop and dominate him, but they said Joel's going to miss maybe the first game of the series because of a knee situation. So hopefully he gets healthy. We need a healthy Joel for 82 games once in our lifetime, because that's the only way the Sixers are ever going to reach their peak potential. They need him healthy and 100%. Anyway, D'Angelo Russell's going to give the Sixers problems. They have problems with these shifty guards who can score off the bounce. I remember Kemba Walker giving the Sixers 60 points in a game earlier this year. They won it, but he still gave them 60. Brooklyn's going to make it interesting. They got a great home crowd. They're going to be excited and engaged because they haven't been in the playoffs in a while. They got a young team that's very well coached. Sixers just have more talent. Ben Simmons, Joel, Tobias Harris, Jimmy Butler, J.J. Redick. Sixers starting 5 is the best. Sixers got the best starting 5 in the East, I think. Maybe the second best. Maybe the second best starting 5. In terms of talent, I think they had the best top to bottom starting 5. That doesn't mean the best performance, but in terms of talent, they had the best starting 5. The only team that can counter that is the Golden State Warriors. The Sixers bench is not that great. It's really not. I wish the Sixers in that Markelle Fultz trade had actually gotten Terrence Ross instead of Jonathan Simmons, because Terrence Ross can shoot. Sixers need shooters, and Jonathan Simmons can't shoot. He's an athlete, but he can't shoot. They need somebody who can knock down those outside shots. But anyway, this is what they got. They traded for Jimmy and Tobias because the Sixers, this is supposed to be the year that they want to make this run. LeBron's out of the East. This is their chance. They're going to have to go through these other teams that we're going to get to in a moment. But they should win this series. I'm hoping for a sweep, but I don't think a sweep is going to happen. We're going to be realistic here, and we're going to call this a 5-game series. It should be 5 games if Joel comes back no later than game 2, and he's ready to fucking play. Like last year when he missed a couple games, he came back ready to play. It could go 6 if Brooklyn really if they get a good run going, if D'Angelo Russell and or Spencer Dinwiddie and or Karis LeVert has like a 35-point game, which I see as a possibility in this series. That can make it a 6-game series. I say this shouldn't go any more than 5 if the Sixers come in and handle their business. And Ben Simmons needs to dominate. Ben Simmons disappointed in the playoffs last year. He needs to come out and establish himself and dominate. And Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris better do what the hell we traded for them for. Both of these guys are looking for max contracts next year. They better fucking play like it. And the last series in the East, Boston versus Indiana, the 4 versus 5. Now, I would pick Indiana in this series if Victor Oladipo was healthy. Even with them playing on the road and Boston having home court, I would pick Indiana with Oladipo. Without Oladipo, the Pacers know that nobody is predicting them to win. They know that everybody's counting them out. They know that nobody believes in them. So they're going to come ready to fucking play. Now, I don't know which Boston team is going to show up. If Kyrie, who's had a great season statistically, but it seems like he hasn't because he's said all these things in the media that has made himself look bad as far as trying to be a leader and failing at it. But he's still the best player on the court in this series, and the second best player is probably on the Celtics, and the third best player is probably on the Celtics, which means the Pacers probably not going to win this series because of those 3 things that I just pointed out. But they're going to make it tough. They're going to make Boston fight for it. They're going to make Boston work for it. I see them taking at least 2 games in this series. This should be a 6-game series unless Boston is really locked in and engaged, and particularly I'm looking at two people, Kyrie Irving and Al Horford. Kyrie Irving comes in like, fuck it, I'm killing, and drops 30 a couple times, and Al Horford is healthy and doing Al Horford things all over the court that don't necessarily show up in the box score. This should be a 5-game series. If Boston wanted to, they could sweep Indiana. They're not gonna sweep because the Pacers they play too hard and they're too well coached. So I see that as should be a 5-game series. Boston could sweep them, but I also see it possibly going 6. So I see the Sixers, Brooklyn possibly going 6. I see Pacers, Boston going 6. Toronto, Orlando should be 5. Milwaukee, Detroit. I mean, as locked in as Giannis is right now, and the fact that they haven't won a first-round series and they lost that 7-gamer to Boston last year, and they should have won that series. If they had a halfway competent coach last year, they would have beat Boston in the first round. So that whole Boston taking the Cavs to 7 never would have happened. But they didn't have a half competent coach, so they beat the Bucks. I think Giannis is going to be really locked in and wanting to get out of the first round finally. After last year's disappointment, they might sweep Detroit, especially if Blake Griffin ain't playing. Detroit needs a healthy, engaged Blake to win a game in the series. Without that, they're dead luggage. So that's my first round picks in the Eastern Conference. You tell me what you think of each of the series. We got Bucks, Detroit. I said 4. Yeah, I'm gonna say 4. Should be 4, may go 5. Toronto, Orlando, that's a 5-game series. Sixers, Brooklyn, should be 5, may go 6. Pacers. Wait, what is it? Celtics, Pacers, should be 5, may go 6. And my little reviews of the 1, 2, the 7 trash teams in the East that didn't make the playoffs. So any of y'all, all of y'all actually, give me your picks, your predictions for each series. Did I get anything wrong? What did I get right? Do I know nothing about basketball whatsoever? Have I obviously never watched the game before in my life? Anything that I said about the teams that didn't make it, leave your comments down in the comments. Make sure you leave your comments before the series start. Don't wait till the game start and then somebody goes up 1-0 to nothing and you come in with a prediction that's different from mine. I know that game. Don't try to do that here. We're going to call you out if you do. Your predictions got to go in before the games begin. Before you hear about any injuries or anything, put your predictions down there in the comments. And make sure you check the other video. I'm going to do the Western Conference. Work on your game. DreAllDay.com.
Nobody out there needs more information. What you need these days is a strategy, frameworks, processes, how to actually take all the information that's out there, all the knowledge and content that's out there, make sense of it, and actually produce a result, a tangible result. That's why I created the Game Group. It is my membership site where you will get tangible results for specific areas: business, personal development, basketball skill, and professional basketball. Choose your area of focus, and we have targeted, specified outcomes every single month, along with live trainings, the ability to contact me, have your work critiqued by me, and a whole lot of other stuff. The link and all the information is down in the description at DreAllDay.com/membership. Get in the Game Group if you're ready to get some results and not just a whole bunch of information. Let's do it. Work on your game.